Tell us about
Well,
Opus and some of those journeys, sir.
I was approached by a good friend, Don Newrider, from the Opus Prize. He's the director of the Opus Prize until this last year. He just retired, as I did from the Opus Prize. And Don had been working with him for 20 years. He saw what I had done in Addis Ababa on the breast cancer project and said, "Boy, if you're interested in working with us, we would sure like to bring you on board." So I was still working full time as a professor, had research projects going on, and I was dealing with clients on the outside, dealing on workflow and digital photography, digital capture, because that was the earlier part of my life before working in documentary photography. I was chasing digital imaging, and I was the pioneer for that at the university. Not loved for it because people love film. So I brought it
Right.
in, and that was my passion for 15 years. Got me very tightly tied with big corporations doing consulting work, training, etc. And that was great. That was a transitionary point. But I needed to come back to the camera, Leo. I needed to come back to where my roots were, where my passion was, and start thinking about things other than making investments, how to save here, how to invest there, and those kinds of things. And that just grew and grew and grew. When I started working with the Opus Prize, it was pretty challenging. We talked about going to some countries that the CDC may not recommend that you would go to and take unless you take a lot of precautions. So with dealing with immunizations, preparations, how to change your diet, how to dress for these kinds of things, uh, that's a big that's a big change in my life. So as I may have told you in the past, as a photographer, as a photojournalist, I tend to go at a story instead of run away from it. The difference, though, between with the stories that I'm trying to tell on the best of my ability is to tell positive stories. I want to talk about good things that are going on this planet, not the bad things, not the conflicts that we're running into. I want to talk about those folks who are making a change. And the Opus Prize recognizes these, um, would you say, modern day Mother Teresa's, these
Right.
change makers. It recognizes them with one each year winning $1 million to help with their cause, and two others, which are runner ups, that get $100,000 each. I'm not involved with that part of the process at all. I just tell the story. The board that makes those decisions on who is going to win the Opus Prize each year doesn't involve me. They don't get to see my work before they've made their decision because I don't want to persuade them one way or another. I want to tell the story as I see it and the research that I've done on it. So that's moved into the point where I was getting more requests to travel than I could. Here's a good example of it. This was a part of the Opus Prize. I did this another pro bono activity. I built this book. They said on the 10th anniversary, we'd like you to cover the first 10 winners of the Opus Prize. I said, look, I'm a full-time professor. I can't do that. I can maybe cover one or two. Actually, I'd already covered one in example in Haiti and another one in Malawi. Um, so I hired some of my alums to help me with this. And it was a big project to put together a book about change makers. I had to hire youngsters who were probably in their early 30s, I would say, when they became adults, if you will. The new adult seems to happen around 28 to 30. I had to have people who had street smarts, who knew how to be safe in going into situations that may involve some danger, may involve dietary problems, those kinds of things. So that was the beginning of the second stage. Once I retired, I still hired some of these people to go to places that I wasn't able to go to. And I then learned that as media changed a lot for telling stories in the new millennium, I had to change from just making still photographs, Leo, to doing audio, video interviews, doing video work, and doing work with the drone. So we call that a one-man band. Okay. I'm doing
Yeah.
everything. And that's very challenging. Budgets were reduced. I wasn't in it for the money. I was reimbursed and paid on many of these projects, but it was mainly to help that organization serve the downtrodden, the impoverished.